People who have hooked up others with a massive age gap between you. How did that happen? Best friend's mom in high school was going through a divorce. Known her since I was in 3rd grade. One night I go over there to hang with friend. She answers the door all disheveled looking. Seems she'd been crying. Friend's not home. Are you okay, Ms. Friendsman? Ugh. I let myself in and we talk and drink some wine. She's all sad. No self-confidence. I am never going to find another man, Mr. Booty. Tell her she's crazy. You're beautiful, hardworking, loving, amazing mom. You'll get scooped up real quick. She laughs. I say I'm serious. She has nothing to worry about. Mr. Friendstead is just a dong. He will never be happy with anyone if he couldn't see what he had before him. Cue silence and flirty look. We hook up. Next morning she thanked me for everything and I left. She got married like 3 years later and has seemed super happy ever since. Did your boy find out? I delivered her newspaper and went to collect for the money and she apparently didn't have any. Instead invited me in and gave 22-year-old me the hour of a lifetime. Margaret was 58. So that's what Margaret Thatcher did on weekends. Old rich Jewish lady hit on me as I was bringing groceries to my car. Guess she likes young black men. She helped pay off my student loans. Get a sugar mama. How old? I sort of fooled around with a professor once. I'm a male, she's female. It was a practical class that she taught and we had a lot of one-on-one time with her. I was having a lot of problems with a single aspect, my work, but she said it was otherwise some of the top stuff in her class. We got along really well, joking and playful teasing. She was 45. I was 20. She kept office hours on Fridays from 3-5 p.m. I had to talk to her about an assignment that I did really poorly on. I went to see her and discussing it. She said, okay, let's sit down and rework some parts here. So sitting side by side we worked on it, each doing a piece and leaning over each other. There was a strange moment where we made eye contact, and she leaned in. We kissed and started making out pretty passionately. She started feeling me up and I did the same. She put her hand on my junk, through my jeans, and pulled back. She said something like, oh no, we can't do this. Oh god, I'm sorry. I said sorry. She said, no, it's my fault. We just kind of sat there for a while in awkward silence. I broke the silence and said, look, I can see how this might be a bad situation for you. I just want you to know I won't tell anyone. Okay, we'll just pretend this didn't happen. I don't want to frick over your career, which I didn't. She was a great professor. She said thanks. I left. We didn't work as closely anymore, but she still marked me fairly. We didn't talk about it again. This reminds me of Shameless, except you didn't continue on with the act. Just got laid off from my job. Freshly split with my wife. Super heartbroken and unsure about my future and my life. Went to the golf course to watch some playoff hockey with my dad and brother. There was this gorgeous, sexy MILF that served there, and since basically everyone in my town was out of work, the place was packed. I was super attracted to her, but because she was being hit on by nearly 50 other men, I didn't even bother to, because I could tell she was done with being hit on at that point. I had talked to her before and we got along quite well, so we did kinda know each other. Anyways, turned out to be a great night. Had fun with my family and some friends. The hockey team we were cheering for won their playoff game and we ended up staying until closing. Almost everyone left, including my dad and brother. I hadn't drank that much, so I was sober, but there were about 6 people lingering around with obvious intentions to try to go home with her. I paid my bill and said goodbye when she asked if I'd stay until she closed up to walk her to her car. I told her I'd be happy to. So I helped her clean a few tables while she was cashing out and kicking out the last 6 or so patrons who were laying it on thick, trying to convince her to come home with them. They all eventually left. She asked for a ride home. We got in my truck. She asked if I wanted to hang out a bit. We went back to my house and for the next couple months we hooked up as much as physically possible. It was the best couple months I had had in years. We got along, laughed, cuddled, and just enjoyed each other for a few months before we both moved away from town. It was mutual and fantastic. 10/10. She had a crush on me. I thought she was very hot, but holy crap, she was at least a decade older than me. How intimidating. I asked her to join me at a bar for karaoke night. We just talked that night. The next week, she invited me over to her place to watch the first GOP nomination debate for the then upcoming 2016 election. Somehow, romance still bloomed. She hit on me some more, but holy crap, she's at least a decade older than me. Eventually, we kept glancing at each other until she leaned over and kissed me. I kissed back, and she crawled on my lap and took her shirt off, and it went from there. Almost 3 years later, we're getting married this April. Found the president of France, guys. Hooked up with a single mum at a small town music festival when I was 17. I think she thought I was older than I was. Even as a 20-year-old guy, people look pretty much the same in the 17-20 something age range. In college, I went to a bar that attracted an older crowd to watch a friend's band play there. I was 21 at the time. Most people there were late 30s, early 40s. Was wandering around casually taking to people. Talked to a 40-something for a while. To my surprise, she invited me back to her place. Drunk me said yes. She still had it for 40 plus. I stayed over that night. The next morning as I was leaving, I crossed paths with her son in the kitchen as I was walking out. He was about my age. He stood there confused for a second. I saw it in his face the moment he realized what happened. I turned and walked to the front door and he yelled, "Really, bro?" I smirked, shrugged, then opened the door and left. You fricked his mom, dude. Cruise ship. I was 16. She was not. Copious amounts of alcohol. Poor life choices. You know, I learned things. She was undoubtedly disappointed. I repeated that pattern for a while, I'm afraid. Hooked up with a guy who was 24 years older than me. I'm in my 20s. We worked together and got on together well. It started with friendly lunches, turned into attraction. I didn't find him physically attractive at first. He was 6 inches shorter than me and kinda pudgy. His personality more than made up for it, and over time, it changed his looks in my eyes and I became physically attracted to him. He appreciated me. He genuinely listened to me, made me feel like the most beautiful woman in the world. He was fun to talk to, always had funny stories. The age difference never bothered me. I could always feel eyes on us when we went out and showed any PDA. Funny how the men would always be the ones to stir. Women just looked at me like a good digger. In the bedroom, he had a small dong but always made sure I was taken care of with oral and his hands. When you have only had young guys pound on you like a jackrabbit, having someone slow down was a fantastic change. He spoiled me, from beginning to end. We eventually stopped seeing each other because we wanted different things in life. He had never been married or had kids, and that is something that I wanted in my life. The split was harder on me, I think, but I moved on and have the life I had always wanted. I hope he is the same. As a guy that's getting older, it's nice to hear that pounding like a jackrabbit isn't always required. I was 21 and she, 37 and a fitness instructor. Met at a bar. Yada, yada, yada. She took me home. Found out throughout the course of smashing 3 times that night into the early morning that she was going through a divorce because her husband admitted to being gay. He left her for his best friend. As the saying goes, right place, right time. I learned a lot that night and realized so many years later the reason why she was so against anal that night. Anal on the first date is a lot to ask of anyone, TBH, regardless of the circumstances. Looking back, this was probably abuse of some form, but it never felt that way. I was 17 and she was exactly 3 times my age, 52 years old. She was an aerobics instructor at a senior assisted living facility, and very attractive because of her job. I was working in the kitchen, washing dishes, because it was my final year of high school and my dad thought I needed to hold down a job and learn some responsibility. I learned a lot more than that. I double checked that math. I lust after older men all the time. They don't lust for me back very often. Probably the oldest is about a 25-year age difference. I am female and came here to say this. Sometimes it feels like I'm stuck in a cycle of doomed relationships. So I feel your pain, colon. Based on the title, I initially thought this thread was about multi-generational drug use. I now see I was wrong about that. Played in a cover band in my 20s. The other guys were in their 30s and had a fan base that matched their age, not mine. One of them asked me out for drinks and we ended up hooking up a few times. Didn't tell the band or her kids, who are closer to my age than hers. Or her kids, who are closer to my age than hers. I would certainly hope so. Expat in Japan with an international age gap story. I was 23, she was 48. We met casually online and decided to hang out. I asked to go to lunch. She skipped the games and came straight to my place. 2 years later, we're still together and I cannot fathom dating someone under 40. Fun anecdote. At first she sidestepped conversations about age until I busted her thanks to being a huge nerd. Mentioning the 1977 cult horror film Horseshoe elicited a knee-jerk response of "Oh my god, I saw it in the theater, and I will forever be jealous that she got to see Horseshoe on the big screen. I will forever be jealous that she got to see Horseshoe on the big screen. You still can. You just need to be on the lookout for it. I saw Horseshoe on the big screen during a film festival. I saw flyers for it for a different film festival years later, although I did not partake because I was more interested in Metropolis, with a live band. We were co-workers. I was 21, in uni and she was 33, a mother of 2. We hung out a few times and then it just happened. Went on for 6 months or so. I'm only interested in men much older than me. My ex was 37 years older than me and we were together for 4 years. We met at work. I was a saleswoman and he was a security guard. The man I'm with now is turning 60 this year. I'm turning 31. We met at a party. Not me but one of my close friends, 26/M, is dating a 44-year woman with 4 kids and a pending divorce. They've been together almost a year. Seem to have stemmed from the mutual desire for sex. Lots and lots of it. We worked together at a cinema. He was technical guy and I sold popcorn. I was invited to help him with this and one thing led to another. We managed to keep that going for about 3 years. He turned 43, I turned 20, and then I left the job. No regrets. We managed to keep that going for about 3 years. Jeez, you two are insatiable. Drunk hookups. When I was 27 I first had a fling with a 41-year-old bored housewife and then with 18-year-old girl. First lasted for 2 weeks, the other one for 2 months. My wife of 8 years is 16 years younger than I am. And honestly, it just happened. I have friends who are about 10 years younger than I am, and she was dating the brother of one of them. He dumped her, and 8 months later, we started dating. I was kind of hesitant to ask her out, but when we spent time together, we were able to hold intelligent conversations that were mutually interesting. She was cute, and liked my looks, still does, thankfully. It just kind of developed into a loving relationship. She was 22 when we started dating, and is 32 now, and is pregnant with our first child. She constantly tells me she pisses her co-workers off by bragging about how good I am to her. She has co-workers that are older than I am all the way down to some who are younger than she is, so it's not an age thing. We're just as much in love today as we were 8 years ago, and are content to spend the rest of our lives together. I was an 18-year-old college freshman virgin. She was a 26-year-old super senior. Met her through mutual friends, and she was on me like white on rice from the start. Ended up in a toxic, manipulative relationship for about 5 months before I realized I was being toyed with. By that time I was out a fair bit of money, a few friends, and my grades were in the shitter from stress. Later found out she had a thing for virgin guys, and had done the same crap to several others. But she was the first woman to show any physical interest in me at all, so it fricked me up pretty good for a while. 0/10, would not recommend. Still regret losing my V card to her. Wish I had saved it for the wonderful woman I've spent the last 5 years with. I've been with women in their 30s since I was 19. Met most of them through WoW, one through Reddit. When you're online, age becomes more of a point of intrigue than a deal breaker like it would be IRL. We met on Fetlife. At the time she was 22 and I was 40. We talked for a day or so and then we decided to meet up for sex. It's now 6 years later and we got married in September on 16. My ex and I did this. Met at 19 and 41. We were together for 2 years. We had plans for marriage and kids and family. I knew he had a daughter from a previous relationship. Turns out that previous relationship was not so previous. but was rather a dead bedroom marriage held together by hatred and a dual financial bankruptcy. He was 43 and I was 28. We met at a pool tournament through mutual friends. I needed a place to crash during the tournament and he had an extra bed in his hotel room. We hung out and watched Happy Feet on his DVD player and gave each other back rubs while we both kept telling ourselves not to kiss the other's neck. Kept it totally PG with some massive willpower on both sides. Hung out the next day and he kissed me on the cheek as I left. I walked away and then turned around and planted a big kiss on him. I stayed at his house the next night and the PG went right the frick out the window. Not sure if it counts as a hookup though, because we haven't left each other's side for more than a few days in 10 years and our 6 and 2-year-old are now watching Happy Feet with us. I tease him about his age occasionally, especially since he's only 5 years younger than my mom, but we have the kind of relationship where we can joke around and say really awful but hilarious crap to each other just to make each other laugh. It's been good and the only regret I have about his age is that I won't have him in my life longer. Me and mine are 15 apart and when it works, it so works. Currently dating somebody 14 years older than me, 23/37. He started working at the church I grew up in when I was in early high school, and I always loved him. Witty, wise, kind, and handsome. My whole family loves him. Never thought he could look at me romantically, so I tried thinking of him as a brother. Was always really frustrated by a church rule that said he couldn't be alone with young women. Never crossed my mind to try anything. Just wanted to hang out with my favorite person. He stopped working there a couple years ago, and I'm not a Christian anymore, but we kept in touch. I left a 3+ year relationship last July, and when I told him about it, seemed like a dam just broke inside him. Turned out he'd been wrestling with feelings for me for several years. The age difference guilt over our previous mentor-mentee dynamic doesn't seem to bother him quite as much anymore, and I am having the time of my life loving and being loved by my favorite person. I had a roommate whose girlfriend moved in with him. He wound up not being able to pay his rent, so I evicted him. She dumped him, but let her stay till she got on her feet. She's 13 years younger than me. Once he left, she started feeling her oats. Married for 16 years now. We were co-workers. I was 8 years younger than him and we actually fell in love and were together for about 3 years. We broke up and I still think he is the love of my life. Her 39, me 21. Not really a massive age gap, but it was an incredibly fun FWB situation with no strings attached. She's still one of the sexiest women I've ever been with. Mature, intelligent, hardworking, incredible in bed. A bit shy of double your age is a pretty big gap. TLDR flirted with a customer at my job. Banging and playing with fake titties ensued. I worked as a salesperson at one of the large phone companies in a retail store. I had a woman come in looking to get a new phone. Very attractive, athletic blonde. I was 24 at the time and she was 36. Anyway, we flirted a little bit while she was there, but I honestly thought it was just her way of haggling. Then, after she left, I noticed she forgot one of her items. I had her number since I worked for the phone company and texted her to tell her she left it. She mentioned that she lived about an hour away and that it would have to be something she would get later, but she kept going with the conversation. The text got more and more flirty and eventually I volunteered to bring the item to her place. She was in lingerie when I arrived. This is one of my favorite stories to tell. I play for a rugby club in Dallas, and we had just had our casino night fundraiser, so we were all dressed to the nines. I happened to be in Highland dress, kilt, plaid, whole 9 yards, and looking fly as heck. Well, night was over and the lads and I decide to hit a dive bar close to the venue. Here's where it gets interesting. I walk in and this girl yells, "Hey Vincent, what the frick?" I'm a bit taken aback as my name isn't Vincent. Poor girl is mortified and starts backpedaling as she's just shouted at a 6 feet 2 inches rugger in a kilt. I was far more amused than anything. I smirk and just tell her, "Darling, you're pretty enough, you can accost me anytime." She grins. I've got mine. Then it got weird. One of the players on the women's team bounces over. 52-year-old rugby player who also does Highland games. Beautiful, farm-built body, strong and graceful in all the best ways. She's just tipsy enough to be mouthy and saunters between us as just belts out, "Hey, if you two frick tonight can I watch?" I cringe so hard I think I popped a disc in my back. Girl 1 kinda looks me up and down, looks at girl 2 and just smirks. "Yeah, sure, let's do this." I'm not really sure what's happening, so I'll let girl 1 tab out, then literally throw her over my shoulder. She loved it, to a chorus of shouting and laughing jackass rugby players. My team saw the whole thing, and we dart out of the bar to her place. Lucky I was at that magical place where I could still function, but not finish. About 7 hours later we were all exhausted, extremely satisfied and reveling in the mix of triumph and shame. It was a good night. Farm built body. I am going to compliment my wife with this one. I'll let you know how it goes. We met online over shared interests. By the time we got around to ages we liked each other enough to give it a try. It's been just over 2 years together now. In my early 20s I hooked up with multiple women 15 to 20 years older than me. Turns out I had a huge kink with age gaps. Some of them were never married and had a thing for young men. Some were divorced and lonely. 90% of the time it happened through online dating services. Now I'm in a happy long-term relationship with someone my age. I was 22 and had a thing for old dudes, so I went on Craigslist and found a bunch of guys that were like 50ish and went and fricked them. I am a little late here, but boy, the thing that happened to me was the wildest thing of my life. So for starters I was 25 and she was 41. She is a short and petite woman that was pretty hippie-ish. Me and her, we'll call her Emily, worked at a bar restaurant for a while together and were always flirty. But I figured just as we both work here, so it's just work flirt thing. I was real wrong about that. So anyway, me and a couple of my friends went to a party that was at a work buddy's house. We were just chilling outside and casually talking. Then the guy's roommate and friends showed up and they are just weird. Like, try to intimidate you and mess with you awkwardly weird. At that point me and my friends just looked at each other with the "we gotta get out of here" look and ceased drinking at this point. I walked inside to gather out things and try to excuse our way out of there, but Emily was there and she was just not happy about that. I made the excuse of this being my 4th night of drinking in a row and I need to just relax. She mocked me and taunted me for a little bit, but I was just taking it. Then it happened. Me and my buddy were leaned up against the wall and Emily walked by. She stopped, looked at me and deep-throated the Heineken bottle she was drinking out of, then proceeded to wink and keep walking. It's the only time a girl ever made me drop my jaw. I immediately turned to my buddy and told him I'm going to get another beer now. From there she basically used her witchcraft to get me to her place, give me a very seductive tour of her apartment with little breaks of making out. All of this culminating up to her room as the last stop, and need I say more? She blew my mind that night. Every time I see her she fricks me, and my chest pounds. That woman has some type of spell on me and I'm not even mad at it. I was 18 working at Subway. She was a magazine editor. She would come in late like 7. I would always joke with her, tell her, "Shouldn't your boyfriend pick up some food for you?" She told me if a guy dropped off food for me, I would get on my knees. Found out where she worked and took her food. She was 39, I was 18. We were FBs for a couple of years until she found a guy her closer to her age. Met her on Tinder. She's 21. I'm 38. She had BDSM in her profile and I super liked a B. We met for one drink, went to her park and she gave me an amazing blowy on the park bench. Went back to my place and fricked for 5 hours. We see each other weekly. It's been going on since October. I was 21 or 22 and he was 42. We met while day drinking in the summer. Took a walk to go get cigarettes and hit it off. We dated for almost a year and it was honestly one of the best and most stable relationships I've ever had. It sizzled mostly because I was nowhere near ready to settle down. He was divorced and wanted kids eventually. I did not. Theater. I was in community college. There was a 14-year age gap between me and the guy who I played opposite. It's hard to both be single and do really romantic scenes and make out with someone on stage several times a day, practice, and not have something happen. I have thought grey hair is sexy since early high school. At around 20 years old, I met a 65-year-old online just to satisfy my curiosity. Since then I have not been with anyone under 50. Totally recommend trying sex with an older man. Usually very relaxed and mellow without the pressure that comes with trying to get a female to orgasm. I Goldilocksed. I was with a woman 10 years older than me for a long time. It evolved into a sexless friendship. Too soft. I needed more. When we split up, I reversed course and started dating a 23-year-old. She was too much. I had forgotten what life was like when you get off of your restaurant job at 1 AM and head straight to the bar. Too hard. I could not keep up. Finally, I met my wife. In addition to being everything I could ever want in a human, she's only got 3 months on me. She's just right. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.